got a special guest today. We got a St. Paul native. We got a St. Croix Lutheran great and a Gustavus Adolphus College legend. My guy, Jeffrey Dubose. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, man. What's up, man? Welcome to my podcast. Got my boy Jeff here.
What
How
up?
you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Man, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, man, with the man that took out my knees.
And I'm glad you brought that up, man, because before we get into it, I always tell people like they was like, who's like some of the toughest players you played? And I swear to God, bro, you always like the first person I mentioned, just like how you played. And I just know you was a hard runner. And I know every time we played against you, you gave us fits. But we're gonna talk about that. So before we get into your origin story, where you grew up, your upbringing, I want to ask you a question. Do you remember our junior year when we was in a state track tournament and it was the 4x1? Do you remember what happened to us?
I do believe so. I can recall, I think, the infamous the baton. Sometimes it's hard to move that thing around. Let's just put it that
Yeah.
way.
So I think we were slated to win. We had the best time. We battled the whole year, so
Oh,
we knew what it was.
oh yeah.
But man, we dropped that baton, and I just see you get that thing. I said, "Oh, yeah, it's over." I said, "We're done."
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a shocker for everyone. We both had our eyes on each other's team, and you guys had a lot of talent, and you guys had, I think you guys had the fastest time even put up there. So you guys were like seated, slated, everything. So, you know, yeah. So it was crazy that happened. Not the way we necessarily wanted to win it, but it was at the end of the day. That just what happened in that moment.
Okay, yeah. So tell me about your upbringing. Like, where did you grow up? Where you from? Let me know. Give me some
Yeah,
insight on
yeah.
that.
So I always like to say I was born in Philadelphia, raised in Minnesota. So I'm a real
Oh, you was born in Philly?
Yep, yep. So I was born in Philadelphia. That's all my family's out east. So my mom and my dad they separated when I was young. So I was about 7 months when we moved to I think it was the east side of St. Paul, and I don't even recall those days. But most of my memories or childhood memories come from being on the west side of the St. Paul area. So yeah, so I grew up in Minneapolis. Had three sisters. Only boy in the family. So I got beat up by girls a lot when I wanted to wage that war, so to speak. And then yeah, so my mom raised us, and yeah, I kind of what other things I say in my upbringing that stuck out. I would say it was just kind of growing up on the system in some ways. My mom, she worked at times, but we dealt with mental health issues in our family, and that's something that she had some of those going on for herself. She did the best with the tools, but I think one of the things that she did well was coming from Philadelphia to Minnesota. They had a lot more resources in terms of how they would help a family. So that's one of the things that she took advantage of to put us in position, to go to the schools that we went to ensure that we were getting the right proper education, and then college. So all four of us end up going to college, and that's one thing I'm appreciative of, and my mom is proud of too about taking that educational path. Even though I say different things about college at time, I don't believe it's for everybody, but I do believe it's a important place to learn and grow. So yeah, that's I'll say that's shooting all the way through my upbringing real quick. Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that mental health thing. I got a mom same way. Deal with that. Dealing with it my whole life. It's shocking. Most people don't talk about it, but it's funny because looking at you, like how your work ethic. Like I got the same thing. Like I'm not trying to compare us, but it's like when you come from a certain background, you gotta like do something to elevate yourself from where you come from. So like that's pretty cool to hear that you came from that background as well. Oh, yeah, that's cool, man. So even thinking about obviously it's a sport podcast. I got you on because I know you a dog. So who was the first person to put the rock in your hand? Like was football your first sport, or what was that sport that we was like I'm finna get it?
Yeah, it was definitely football. It kind of came at so it was kind of one of them things where I'm just watching TV. I remember at a young age,
Mhm.
nobody really explained things to me about what football was. I kind of had to like piece them together and make sense of it. So I remember early on, I just didn't even understand to the point of of football when they was. I was like, why are the fans always throwing trash on the field and they stop the game? It's like, why can't they control the field? I don't understand they were throwing yellow flags. So that was part of me kind of growing up and start figuring out what is football. But then as I start to watch it, I think I was an Eagles fan young just because having a conversation with my grandpa. We were on the phone. He's like, "You're an Eagles fan, right?" And it wasn't really a question. So it was like, "All right, yeah, I'm an Eagles fan." So that's kind of how that came about being. And I was watching Westbrook, and as I'm watching them, I think, and you probably could, have this experience too. I don't know, or may have a similar experience where I'm just watching them, and you kind of, sometimes you watch them, you're like, whoa, and then there's sometimes you're like, man, I think I can do that. Like you start in your mind
Yeah.
seeing yourself doing stuff, and that I had that experience early on a lot. So I was just like, and this is how I'm talking about when I couldn't do none of that, but in my mind, I was like, man, I could do this. And then when it really clicked for me, being in that situation, growing up in the system, I heard what they paid them to do it, and I'm like, what? I'm like, bro, I thought it was just crazy. I like think about a young person. It's crazy that they would pay you money to do something you would love to do. So I was like, put those two together, and that was my sport, and then it became like a journey of how do I get there to actually doing it, and so I would say the first person to introduce. So we played like when I grew up. We grew up. When I moved across the street, so we used to live in the projects, and we moved literally across the street, so it was still the projects, just across the street. But anywho, we moved into these houses across the street, and we used to have speed bumps, and we used to call it playing speed bump to speed bump. And we played two-hand touch, and around there I was about like 7 or 8, and so you got guys that are older, like we had a range of ages, and this is when people used to play outside, right? So so everybody was outside, kind of neighborhood, and again, type of thing that was happening. They play 500, and they had pickup games. But when these guys were playing 500, nobody ever taught me how to catch or nothing like that. But again, I had this experience of like I could do that, and like I would see how guys go and how they're catching the ball, and like I start like puzzle like in my mind like how would I do this, or like how I fit in to like get advantages and stuff like that. So I just thought start seeing those opportunities. So I kept my mind. I would always like be thinking of those things, and then soon people will pick me up on a team, and then I make a play every now and then, and their eyes get big. They start understanding like so. But I was always kind of the littler guy, and like I was never the fastest. Definitely
Sure.
wasn't the tallest, and wasn't the strongest. So it was like I was just, kind of getting beat up, a lot by those guys, and but I was kind of always sticking with it. And then there was one guy specifically. I'll try not to be too long winded with this, but his name was Aaron McCaster, and he was like one of the older guys in our neighborhood. And I remember he was holding his pads and he's walking off like I gotta go to practice. I'm like, practice? What you mean practice? Like, yeah, we practice up here. Walk up there. I was like, okay. So one day he was going to practice, and I guess they had sign-ups or whatever to get go up there and sign up. And I remember following him. I walked up there to Baker and watched them, and they were all handing out pads, and they were like, "Well, you need your parents' signature or something to sign." And my mom was at home, and she wasn't coming out there. And I'm like, dang. So I just sat on the hill. And actually, even before, like, it was probably like 2 practices that before I even asked, because growing up with not having a father in my house, it was hard to me to really communicate with other males outside the house. It was kind of like it was kind of a scary experience. I just didn't understand, males and how they talk to each other. So it was kind of like awkward. In some extent, I was probably afraid to do it. So I sat there and watched the practices and just watched them playing. And I was on the hill. And then eventually, I think when I actually, one day they're like, yeah, come on, come on. And, they were handing out the pads and stuff because they don't hand it out the first day. And they're like, oh, you need a parent to sign it. So I was like, dang. So I felt defeated, like, man, this ain't going to happen. And it just happened to be like my school where they were practicing at. We're walking down the hill, me and my mom. So we're walking down from school. I'm like the guy who ran the booster program for the Pee-wees. He's driving down the street, and I'm like, yeah, mommy, that's the guy who be handing out the equipment. And she's like, oh, hey. No, my mom, if you don't anything, she flagged him down. I'm like, hey, my son said this. And next thing you know, I'm literally going into the equipment room, getting pads and everything on. And from that moment, I remember after that point, I was literally in the mirror, helmet on, pads on, talking about what I'm going to do. So, I mean, from there, I guess the ball was put in my hand from that moment.
How old were you?
Shoot, that was third grade.
You started at third grade?
Yep, yep.
See, I didn't start till fifth grade. I was a late bloomer, man.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Then shoot, man. Looking back, it's a blessing. Yeah, so I started early in that case.
So what was it, a park board or was it like your school team?
Yeah, it was a park board. So it was through the West Side Boosters organization.
I knew it.
Yep,
I knew it. You look like a West Side Booster. So y'all had like the Raiders colors, right?
yep. We were Raiders.
Yep.
Yep. When we were the boosters, we had the lightweights and the heavyweights. But then like, our inner when we played against each other was our peewees, and then when sometimes our peewees was like us playing against each other. They have a draft of all the players. And then when we
Yeah.
got older, then we play against like Oakdale, Jimmy Lee's, Oakdale Blue and Black. Then as you get older, they kind of add more different teams and it changes around. But Westside Booster, yeah. Go ahead.
Did you play with Santano?
Santino?
Santino. Yeah, my guy. I'm sorry, I'm messing that. Did you play with Santino?
Wait. Are you talking about from SPA?
From SPA. Did you play with him?
So
Yeah.
I don't.
Rosario.
I played against
He
him.
played for the West Side Boosters.
He did. What year? What year? He was our year too, right?
He was our year, yeah.
I don't know because I don't recall like everybody that I played with. I know most players. I have to look back at this picture I have on my wall. We probably played on the same team, but when I played there, I don't recall him being there. It was like there was a few other guys, but I remember battling against him because he was a beast, man.
Beast. Yeah, cause so I played AAU basketball. I know that's who he played for, so I'm assuming that he played with them. Like
No,
that's
no,
it only makes sense.
I think he might have played basketball with the West Side Boosters, and then I don't think that he played football. If my recollect, he might have been one of those basketball that he was just an athlete. He did everything. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me if he was kind of focused on basketball and AAU because man, AAU isn't that like over, during basketball? I mean during football when it's like in the summer.
It's like winter to summertime, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of the journey of get into play football, and then once I finally I got on a team called the Cowboys. They did the draft, and my first my first experience wasn't even having the ball in my hands. It was like my first play lineup. They're doing Oklahoma drills. It wasn't no concussion, all that stuff wasn't a thing back then. So they were like line up. We gotta get the hitting. So first play, I remember because there was two twins. It was Sam and Charlie. We went to school together, and they happened to be on my team. So we're lined up, and I think it was Sam, which was the rougher one. And he's a lot bigger in size than me, and I was a small guy, and they don't know nothing about me. At this point, they don't know who I am. So it's like they line up, they give him the ball, and he's a bigger guy, so they're slower. So I went and hit him at the legs and DDT'd him back. And from there, they was like, dang, he slow to get up and stuff. And from there, they was like, oh, who is that? Oh, that's Dubose. And so they called me Dubose, all the way, you go back to Westside Boosters, I was known as just Dubose. And then, so yeah, from that point, and then, that was in practice. And then my first play, I remember I don't even remember his name, but there's this big guy who was, running over all of our players. Everybody's scared to hit him, and I'm on the sideline looking like, man, I could take this dude down. What's going on? So they put me in, and they put me in that middle linebacker, because that's like a good play where you can mess up a little bit and stuff. And I remember he took off on the sideline, and I just took an angle up to the field, and I tackled him by his legs. And then from there, it was a wrap. And then I had the team's trust because I took down the biggest guy, and that was Pee Wee. So, yeah.
Easy. All right, so obviously you get better, right? You start playing tailback. So your eighth grade year, I know you probably killing. Was you killing that year? And I know, so I want to ask you, what made you go to St. Croix Lutheran? Like you said, you're on the west side. You got the St. Paul City Conference. You got Oakdale, Tartan, which is in Oakdale. All those surrounding Maplewood area schools. What made you go to St. Croix Lutheran? Did you go? Did you go to that Pilgrim school?
No, I didn't. I'll bring you through. Okay. So, Pee Wee's happened, then I get on the West Side Boosters. It's funny you say you got better, and it must be you would have been starting and all that, but that actually wasn't the case. I actually, I got better, but that didn't mean that I was put in the or the best at the time. So there were still people faster than me, stronger than me, at 7th and 8th grade. So I wasn't actually, I was probably like third string. Not saying in my mind I wasn't third string, but I was third string by actually what I played and stuff. So I still felt like kind of like not really, I feel like I wasn't being utilized how I feel like I could have been, which was fine. But I kind of had some frustrations with that at times. But I still stayed with it because I love the game of football. And I remember, so I went to actually Cherokee, and then I went to Webster school because I was having some behavioral issues at school, and then because of that, I kind of got a certain I branded as a certain type of child, and I would get even in more trouble. I was a class clown. I wasn't beating people up, so I just want to clarify that.
That's crazy. I would have never thought that.
Yeah, so I wasn't beating nobody up. I was probably picking on people, bullying them, which I'm not proud of. Fast forward, so my mom moves me out of this school, and she puts me in Webster. And they were just more advanced.
Is that St. Paul or over north?
No, that was in St. Paul.
St.
I
Paul.
think it's
Okay.
now like Barack Obama School or something like that. They changed the name. So I went there, and I mean, I remember, I tell you, if you have a student that's acted up, you put him in a school that's worse than where he at, he'll realize quickly that he's not a bad kid. So I realized that, and hit the books, and then kind of like my options, like so I started looking at football. I had a couple guys that like were in my neighborhood older than me, and they were going to like Humboldt and Johnson, and there was a game between them in Arlington, and there was around those schools. But I remember watching, I think it was Central Johnson game. They were playing against each other, and it was this guy. Now Freddie Coleman was his name, but he was a beast. What I'm saying, his cast was like bah. I'm like dang. So he played basketball, football, and he was like the homecoming king, whatever. And I just remember like, dude, I want to be like him. That was kind of in my head. Like I want to play in high school ball, and I think that like bridged the gap of like, okay, where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Johnson, right? So I'm like, we start, brainstorming as a, 2-on-2 touch in the community. It's like, hey, look, man, we're gonna go over to Johnson. We all gonna be a team. We're gonna run St. Paul. That was the whole plan. And of course, my mom had other things. She was like, look, you ain't going to Johnson.
That's crazy.
Right. So I was like,
You know what's crazy?
what's it?
My grandma did the same thing to me. I'm like, I'm going to Washburn. I'm doing this. I'm about to go play in the city. We finna run up. She
Yeah.
said, no, you ain't. You going to Delasalle? I said, what? So that's funny that, bro, this is crazy. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep
So
telling the
my
story.
mom said that. So she gave me. So I from Webster, I went to Heritage as middle school, and the feeder school of Heritage. It's called Two Rivers now, but it used to be called Sibley. So it used to, Heritage go to Sibley. So my options were either Sibley, Central, where my sister had gone to, and then or St. Croix, right? And I was like, well, Sibley, I didn't want to go because they were them guys over there wanted me to play like their 8th grade football with them, and I'm like, nah, I'm a West Side booster. I'm not doing that. And I know it was all politics over there anyway, so I wasn't really very fond of going there. So I'm like, nah, I really don't want to go to Sibley. Central, I'm like, it's going to be another, taking myself out of a whole thing and try to reintroducing people. But what the kicker was with St. Croix, actually was the only school that I went and visited, right? And so I sat down with the coach, with Coach Lemke. And one thing that stood out with me, he was like, we got, he showed me the records, the guys who were doing stuff, showing the players and stuff. He's like, look, I'm not saying you're gonna come here and start, but you're gonna have opportunity to, show what you got, and that's what I love. Like that's kind of what got me for Gustavus, everything. I don't want to come in and be given nothing. I want to come
Right.
and earn it, and that's not to say I want to be a loser, but I mean, I want to come in and earn a spot. And that's, when I went there to St. Croix, same thing. I was not the best, there was a few guys in front of me, but once I like learned the fundamentals and the system, I was like able to kind of in my mind, okay. I think I vividly remember we were in the weight room, and I told my guy Dan, I was like, look, man, I'm be first string running back next year. Y'all can fight for who gonna be the second. He was like, and they always laugh at you. When you say something like that, they always laugh. So he laughed, and we just continued working out, and things happened. Unfortunately through track season, right, where I think it was like that year that Dvorak had pulled his hamstring. And
So this is our freshman year.
yep, so it was going into our sophomore year. Pulled his hamstring.
He was a beast too.
Man,
He was a beast.
yeah, he was super different, man. I remember watching him. Boy, I'd be nervous to get him. Like, man, he tumble rolling and keep going. Like the
So you played varsity as a freshman?
yeah. So now initially I didn't start there, but how Limpy likes to do, he likes to give you playing time. So what he would do was our freshman year we was really good. So when we got up by a lot, he'd get the younger guys in. So I would get some. I got that 1 yard line where I didn't do no pushing, but they pushed me in. And I got in the newspaper. So that's how that happened. But yeah, when I had that recruiting visit, kind of not to get out too off track, but I'm talking to Mr. Lemke, and decided, I'm coming here, and that kind of was the end of that. And then long behold, like some of my older West Side friends from the Pee Wees, they end up, some of them being there. It was like a small world. Like, there was a lot of people from International and from Wisconsin that, we made some friends, but, there was a cool that, we had a bunch of guys that we had some familiarity with. So.
How was it going to school there? Is St. Croix Catholic or is it Christian? Or I know it's private, but
Yep. So St. Croix is Lutheran. I had to learn what that.
Lutheran.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I grew up Baptist, so I guess I should talk about, I did grow up in the church, in the Baptist church, and going to Old Country Buffets in between services and then having to go back like, yeah, this was a trap. It was like, who did this? But yeah, so I grew up Baptist, and I didn't really know what Lutheran was, but what that meant to the extent of at St. Croix, we had chapel built in, which was nice. Looking back here, it was like, dang man, that was cool. And now there's feeding you spiritually. So we had chapel throughout the day. It was kind of nice breaking classes. We had a religion class where they kind of go through the Bible and learn and understand it. And to my understanding of what Lutheran is, kind of like a break off from the Catholic Church with Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther. So
I know.
it was a whole history on that. So it was cool going there. One big thing that stood out to me was like, I was used to coming from schools with a lot of women teachers. And here we went to a school that had a lot of male teachers, which was new for me. And yeah, it was good to kind of have those kind of figures in classes. Though my favorite teacher, to this day, it was a woman, which I will go to Miss Kuznicki. Just give you a shout out, Miss Kuznicki, English teacher. One of those teachers that act like she was very mean until you got into her class, and she was like the best teacher ever. And I was like, dang, this is crazy that she would act like this whole time. Anywho,
Was it diverse there? I mean, I only see it from the outside looking in. Like I know a couple of you guys on the team, but other than that, like
yeah. So it depends what you call diversity. So in the sense of,
well, coming from a public school where predominantly black, and then you go to a Lutheran school, like what was the dynamics of that?
Yep. So where I was coming from Heritage, which was predominantly white already. So it was
Oh,
yeah, but
you went right where you was at.
yeah. So it was very, very usual to what I was coming from in the sense of the smallness of it. That was kind of what was different. And then a lot of people that were there were coming from like either small schools, like smaller schools coming up, or they're coming from like even, being homeschooled, things like that. So it's like you had a lot of people coming from smaller schools and things, and you had some bigger schools as well, like, moving and stuff like that. And then you had a lot of international students too. So, but yeah, to the sense of like, black BIPOC, if that's the politically correct thing to say.
Right.
Yeah, if you're thinking of that, there was not many, black and people of color initially, and then kind of when we had Pilgrim, we had the time I was there, like my sophomore year, no, going into my sophomore year, we kind of had some recruiting where a lot of them, because they were seeing us there, well, I like to think that, but other reasons too, because
that's probably correct.
Yeah, we had some good experiences. So we had like my brother Wesley, Cam, Nick, all.
Beast. Wesley is a beast. Shout out to Wesley.
Yeah, shout out.
Wesley Tucker.
You have to get him on here. He gonna have a good conversation too.
For sure.
So yeah, so we had those guys coming through, and then there was a more popular, seeing more faces. I think, and that's kind of how you feel more comfortable when you see more people who look like you, in that sense, and yeah, so. We had a group of us come through, and now, and then we had, I remember even Brazilian. So we had some people from Brazil and all them when I came back. So that was neat to see the different places. And it's all about where they recruit, and where they, have access to it. When I was there as a coach, they were kind of talking about getting, West Side Booster guys in, which then you have, Black, Hispanic, Asian, all different type of people. Yeah, they're open to that, definitely. I didn't feel any, uh, uh, I didn't I didn't have any like animosity on the terms of racism that I felt on a day to day basis. But if I had to pull that card, I would. It's like nah. Yeah,
All right, so we get to your sophomore year, you're starter, right? Because like you said, you told him like, "Hey,
yeah,
I'm about to be that dude."
yep. After that, opportunity comes. And this what I'll say, as I learned throughout my football career, if I could share with the young followers, athletes that are coming up, and even older people, honestly, 23, these days, that's young too. So I think it's really important to, be ready and be ready for your opportunity. Most people be like, they want the opportunity to just like, it's like they're in line, they're waiting in line, and now it's my turn. That's really not how opportunity, well, for me at least, has ever appeared. It's always like, all of a sudden, boom, 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 somebody out, okay, you're up. But if you're not ready, there's no way you can, take advantage of your opportunities.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that everybody gets an opportunity. It's just that, are they sulking about how, man, if I was warmed up, I wasn't ready, or whatever, this is just how life is, man. You get opportunity, you make the best of it, and now they can't take you out of that spot. And that's kind of what happened. I'm not thinking like, oh great, my players around me are getting injured, but that just what happened in the track season. And because of that, it opened up, that spot was open. And actually was a 2 spot, because even though Dvorak got injured, he was still number 1 at that time. So it was really fighting for that too. And I think I told him I was taking this spot. That's what it was, more of that. Then it kind of was left. So it became a battle. Well, because of that, we end up both playing at that time, because we were kind of going back, and then throughout the season, it was just kind of became clear. And then the next year, he was the second one, and then so forth. And Tyler Kester, he was a beast. So
Beast,
yeah,
Tyler
yeah.
Kesselberg. People sleep on Tyler, man. Tyler was a dog.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Tyler, man, his year, and then track, man. Track got a lot of guys, man. He didn't get injured in track. He got injured in football, but then
That was our senior year.
senior, but he stopped football because he wanted to run track. So yeah, Tyler, he was a beast though. He's an athlete, and that's when Wesley stepped up big, and man, that he turned into a whole new Wesley. He turned into beast that year, man.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Tri-Metro. Obviously, like Delasalle was the powerhouse of Tri-Metro. Let's just put it out there. Besides like us, like was there any other teams that you was like, when I get my shot, I'm about to go crazy on them, or was there any teams that you thought like, hey, they got our number, or was it any team that you was like, man, they sweet? Well, no, I want to ask you this: who was the worst team in the conference?
Okay, all right. Well, I would say okay, the team that, well, outside of there was one team we had a big outside of De La Salle rivalry. It was probably had to be, for a little bit, it was St. Bernard's, because we was talking to a lot of their ladies over there. So we had friends. We wasn't talking to her like that, but it was like that.
Yeah,
So it was kind of like they were like, when we played against them, it was kind of like, oh, we're gonna show you guys. So it was that, and then they had this one year. I think they had Jordair. They had, I can't remember. He was skinnier running back, but he was in the newspaper a bunch. He was a beast, man. He had a bad
they had Brian Sanderson.
Sanders. Yep, they had Sanders. I think he was a QB or a wide receiver at the time, one or two.
He was a QB. We never got to play them.
Oh man, yeah. They.
We didn't play St. Agnes either.
Oh,
We played.
that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna tell you about Phil. We're gonna keep going. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. Outside of De La Salle being the top dog, I would say it would probably be like St. Bernard's, and then Concordia. One year they had our number. Like for my sophomore year, they knocked us out. I mean, we should have beat them, but they knocked us out the playoffs, and from that day it was like a rivalry there. But we still kind of got the best of them. The team that was kind of like and I say this with a asterisk too, because still to this day, the hardest I've ever been hit was by this team, and it's because I was underestimating them. So I'm like, it was a team. You had those teams. It's like, man, we're gonna be out by about half or even a quarter, right? So it's like, man, we trying to get the other second. Hey, y'all get pumped up. Y'all be ready to come in. And next year, it's crazy because this team, once I describe them, you'll probably even be able to say their name. They literally came to the game with like 12 people on their sideline. What team I'm talking about? Purple. Brooklyn Center. Yep. Here it is. Brooklyn Center. They came to the game with 12 people on the sideline, and we like, bro, they can't even go to both ways with that. Maybe not 12, maybe 16 or 17. But literally, it was thin. And I remember just like kind of really taking them for granted, and we're running through because like, okay, we're gonna run it up on them, and next thing you know, we're in a tight game, and like at halftime, but before halftime, I get the ball and I run up the middle, and I ran, just normal, like trying to, get my little 5 yards, and this dude picked me up. Like he grabbed like my legs and then like somehow got my knee up and then slammed me down. My knee hit my head. This before concussions. So I'm like, I come off the sideline like days. I'm like, dang. And then so I'm like, dang, they're like, you all right? I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, somebody give me an Advil, So got a couple Advils, and then that was the, when you get hit like that, I think you snap out of it and you're like, come on, we in the fight now. But yeah, that was probably the team that in my mind was like, okay, just because, and it wasn't because they weren't better, it's just because their numbers. Like, if you only got 12 guys, you're gonna get tired. And that's why I say when we played you guys, we know, look, if we not really up by something at half, or if we tied at half, that's losing, because the second half y'all gonna keep the same intensity, and we can't match that just because that's our numbers. So, but yeah.
So the junior year, that's the first time I got like a whiff of you. I was like, man, because I seen you your sophomore year, because I was on varsity, but I was predominantly like a special teams player, which was crazy. I should have been a starter, but it is what it is. I remember like first time we played, man, y'all got up on us 14 rip, and I'm looking like, no way. But I see this running back, little dude. Oh, I'm like, who is that?
Man.
And then it's you doing the next play. Tyler, gone. I'm looking like, what? So, like, what people don't know is, like, y'all always had our number the first few possessions.
Yeah.
And then we bounced back. So, just let's talk about that. Like, what was it like playing against us? Because we always saw each other twice. We're going to see each other in the regular season.
Yep.
And we're going to see each other in the playoffs.
Yep.
So, let's just talk about that.
Yeah. So I think early on it was instilled in our, because I think I've only beaten you guys I wasn't even playing, because so I said I started varsity, but not till after 3 games in my freshman year. So I was in the stands the first time we ever beat you guys.
Freshman year, y'all beat us.
Yep.
At St. Croix.
Yep, exactly. So that was the first time, but I remember them because, like, when you're a freshman, you kind of come in. There's a culture there that you don't really understand fully. But then, like, they're like, man, like before that, you guys had a run on us, and we didn't. Nobody would beat you guys. But then we had beat you guys a couple years, and we were kind of on top at that point. So us beating you guys, it was taken for granted in that moment. Like we didn't really understand the normacy of that, and so kind of going into the next year, we knew it was a battle, right? Because we seen you guys last year, so we knew it was going to be tough and everything. But I think it was just like we start to learn it. So that we lost that year. I mean, my sophomore year, and we're like, okay, I think that's when you guys might have Donzel Bell, was it?
Yeah,
Y'all had him. He was kind of the main running backs, and
No, Evan was the main running back.
No.
Evan Williams.
I think Bell was before him.
No, that was Jeremy Randall.
There it was. Jeremy Randall was he was the one before him. And we were like, dang, okay, well, we glad he gone. And y'all just replenished. And I'm like, dang. So then y'all had him. And then you had Michael Van Leer at quarterback. Y'all down there had quarterback was a running back. He was the running back.
Yeah, our team was ridiculous, man.
How you always like granted, remember I tell you I'm playing stuff in my head like, oh, I could tackle him, I could get him. Mm-hmm. This is like one of the first times where I realized like this stuff is crazy. Like what he's doing out here is crazy. Because I remember I'm like, I'll tackle him. Why is everybody missing him? I was watching film. I'm like, why is everybody missing him? Just wrap him up, bro. I was going against, it was Evan. I'm talking about Williams, and he's running down the field, and I got him, dead to right. Next thing you know, he gone. He spin, and like I fall down. I'm chasing after the play, so I run upfield on the angle because he done made everybody else miss because he's going back across the field now. I'm chasing up and I miss again. I'm like, dang, okay, this is, and that's when I realized, dang, this is real. This is he a beast. So I'm like, we
Be
gonna need,
different.
like when we tackle him, we gonna have to group tackle him. And I remember like the first time I tackled him, it was like he got caught, and then like we had to like lift his legs off the ground because if his legs was on the ground, he was still running. Like he was still like he still had life, man. You had to literally put him on the ground, or he was not gonna go down. Like he was different. So
Yeah, man. We go past that year. I remember hitting you for the first time. I'm looking like this dude runs so hard. Oh my god! Like I'm playing strong safety at the time. Y'all, that Veer offense was crazy to stop, bro. Like I don't care what nobody say. Y'all had one of the toughest offense I ever played against because you don't know who's gonna get it. And like I said, it's you, it's Tyler, then it's Wesley. It's like it's pick your poison. You're gonna hit that whole hard, you're gone. Tyler is just a speedster. He's out of there,
yeah,
and then Wesley is just a bruiser. So like, man, that was crazy. I do like remember like every time we played y'all, it was always like a tough first half. But then obviously, like to your point,
yeah,
we just had it. We just run away with it.
yeah.
So that year, did you rush for 2,000 yards your junior year as well?
I don't think so. I think I might have did 1,000. A
1,000.
thousand my junior year. Then my senior year was a 2,000 year. Um, and then I will say that there's one time where we didn't stay with y'all. I remember it was 50-0. Y'all 50 balled us. Y'all did that twice to us actually. And I think it might have been the same season.
Probably in the
You ever?
yeah, probably in the playoffs or something.
Yeah, it was like if you ever get 50 ball, you're like, that's never happening again. And then you get 50 ball
Right.
again, then you're like, darn it. So it's like, I remember at these times, it's like, man, they shouldn't be in our bracket. And then, I mean, I think it might have been, was it our senior year? No, our senior, y'all didn't move out of our conference
Until
until
after
after
about a
we
year.
left. But I do remember my senior year, that last thing you try to say to the battle. It's like, I know you were always good, but you were really the reason that y'all really got us. I feel like that first.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate
No,
that.
honestly, because you was coming down the way you was coming down, hitting the legs, man. At that second, I was like, I couldn't even lift my legs up, man. And then, so how I always knew if a game was real, like the next day when you lay in the bed and you falling off the seat with cramps, like
Yeah.
I had that horribly. But I was saying like you really stood out to me because I was like, man, how am I going to beat this guy? There was nothing. It's like somebody has to block him. Nobody is fast enough to get to him, and you was just right there because the key was getting 5 yards every rip, right? And then you wear him down. In about the third, fourth quarter, hopefully you don't beat him up enough that all of a sudden you start busting them. And even early on, you have a lot of energy, so you can bust them too. But because you were stopping them that line, like your guys like had the arm tackles, but we're below those arm tackles. So, like when you was coming low, I'm like, man, I can't get lower than this dude. Like it's like because you was diving. Dang.
I had to, bro. You ran low, so I had to get low, and like you said, that speed. I was reading you because, like I said, it was you guys were hard to play against.
Man. But yeah, man, y'all did y'all study. We were studying and I think that last game, I didn't leave. I felt like even though we lost, I felt it was a respectable, it was a competitive game.
Right.
And y'all might have beat us by like 14, I think, or 14 or 21, and you could probably look it up, but yeah, I felt like even though, we didn't get the W, it was like a hard fought and it was like, shoot, it's what we had. Like that it's
Right.
just what it was.
So senior year comes, y'all go crazy. I think y'all only lost was to us that year.
Yeah, I think that was like an 8-2.
Yeah, and then you guys beat Mini Haha. Y'all scraped them.
Bro,
What was it 55-8?
I was
Like
I was gonna mention them literally in my mind, like of who's the top teams, many high, because
they were. That was a top team
yeah,
though.
and they had that tight end. I forget his
Tyler was it Tyler Hansen? Was it Tyler
It
Hampton?
had to be him. But you know why we got him?
Yeah.
We put a little Sharon on him, I'm gonna say. First of all, it was a muddy game. We had grass field, so it was a muddy.
Dude, that's what happened to us because we played them the last game of the season, and it was a mud bowl. So what people don't know is we had wore our white regular jerseys, but we still had our old jerseys from last year, and we had flip flop and put them on. They were pissed
Dang.
at halftime, and then that's how we was able to get up out of there. And we didn't beat them by that much that year because it was and Evan was hurt too. So
Yeah,
that's a different dynamic when he's not playing. That's
absolutely.
about
I
three
remember
touchdowns
seeing
when he
that.
ain't playing.
That's why they blew up in our mind because the score for your game was like 6-8 or something,
Something crazy, yeah.
and we were
Yeah,
like, "What?"
ridiculous.
They stayed with Benny. They stayed with Delasalle like that. So in our head, bro, we was locked in, bro. And I'll tell you, we locked it to the point. Me and James, he was I play like a brave, like a robber, or like basically a strong safety. But my coach
Yeah.
kind of gave me, hey, when you see something blitz or whatever, he kind of gave me that go ahead to do it. And I remember, me and James said, hey, he catch that over the middle. I'm going low, you go high.
Mhm.
And we literally did that. And I think he called maybe a couple of them. We splashed them, and then from there, like I think I slipped up and got a couple big runs on them, and they got down. And then from there it was like once we seen, like, we just started laying it on. And I think that was a game probably was out by like half, or
No,
came in
I'm
third
sure you
quarter
were.
for like a series.
So your senior year, you went crazy. You had 2,134 rushing yards. As I can recall, I think the top three rushers in the state was uh you, Evan, Montreal Wade from Washburn. Yeah. So like, and you had 34 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was.
You were going crazy, bro. So and obviously I was locked in looking at the box score. You went crazy. I think one game, I think you guys played against what was it? I think it was SBA senior year.
Oh
You had you had 315 yards on 16 carries.
man, that was fun. Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. 315 yards. What was you doing, bro? Tell me about that game.
Man, look, it was yeah. So it was funny because I think the my big yards were always against SPA. So we think SPA was weak, but they kind of came together with MPA. They kind of had a merger.
But they had some damn though.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did have some guys. So when it happened, I think the two big times. I mean, one was a night game at our place. I think that's when I had that big game, and another time it was like a hot game. It was we was running like that, and I think that's when Dvorak was playing too, because like he was going, but I had. Anyway, I won't even bring that up. We were both going, and
Bro,
everybody was eating.
but you want to know? Hold on, let me tell you the score of that game. 82-38. You had to have like 6 touchdowns that
Yeah,
game.
I think I might have. Look, I got so that's the time I got in Sports Illustrated for that one. They put like faces of the crowd, and I think it was I was going for the record. I think it might have been 8 touchdowns.
You had 8 touchdowns?
Yeah, I got look. I got the plaque right here. Let me just look at it real quick. No,
Oh, let me see that. Oh, that's getting
1 second.
clipped. Come on.
Let me grab it. I think this is right.
Oh yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. So Coach Lemke, shout out to him. He put this together for me. But it says it was 82-38. How many?
That's hard right there.
7 touchdowns, not 8. Seven touchdowns in the first half.
The first half,
Yeah, so 315 yards and 7 touchdowns in the first half. They
he
took
was
me out.
clouded. Oh wow, bro, that's crazy. Yeah, I know. I was doing my research and I had looked that up. And bro, I looked at some of the stats when he played us, bro. You weren't no slouch against us. You was going crazy. The first time he played, you had 140 yards on 19 carries, and then the last time, I'm actually looking now. I got max preps up. You had 131 yards. But you had 32 carries though,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Like, come on, like,
Because I had somebody chop my knees down every rep.
yeah, man. But yeah, so boom, we end senior season. I know, back then when we was in school, recruiting was kind of tough, and obviously we both went to small schools. Even though we were good players, we're small, right? But the recruiting was very difficult back then. So like, talk about your recruiting process. Like, how was that? Like, who did you have coming to the school? Like, what was your interest, and like, what was your final decision on why you went to the school you went to?
Yeah, so I'll try to make it quick and sweet because it wasn't crazy recruiting on me. My dream team was the Penn State.
I was gonna bring that up because I remember we was in track and I'm like, man, where you going to school at? He's like, man, I'm trying to go to Penn State.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm looking at like man, they ain't
So
going to Penn State, bro.
so there was Penn State they didn't bite so that didn't happen. But I guess my two biggest prospects outside of Penn State was Cornell, and the other one was UMD. And then the other ones was like just letters, right? So they reach out by letters and nothing like serious outside of those letters and things. So I would say UMD was it. The recruiter I think a running back coach came up, and this, from my immaturity, he's like, look, you come here, you're going to redshirt, right? We redshirt everybody. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm trying to play, like I'm like, no, that's all I heard, redshirt. And I'm like, oh, they're not going to let me play. So I'm like, no, I want to play. So I was like, check them out in my mind. And then, the other one, so the Cornell I was talking about, so they were serious about me, the Bears. But the thing I didn't like about them was like they didn't have a playoffs, right? So it was just like a regular season. I think it was just a conference champion from that, and they didn't have like a playoffs where you could win the big thing. And in my mind, like in hindsight, I'm like, man, I want to win. But I didn't say no because of that. I actually still want to go there, but to get in there, it was like I would need an academic scholarship or something. So I had to apply for it. I needed my transcript sent. And at that time, I didn't have my balance paid for St. Croix, so they won't release my transcript.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I wasn't able to make the cutoff for the time I would need to apply for that scholarship. So
You could have went to Cornell.
right at hindsight, so yeah, that was like the two big ones that I was seriously talking to. So I ended up going to Gustavus. And Gustavus was recruiting me heavily as well. So my sisters went there. I remember Cosgrove. He came to the school and sat down, talked to us. Me and James. We were all in the room. So he had a conversation, and then I talked to Galindo.
Galindo. Shout out to Coach Galindo, man. I got a story about him too.
Yep.
When you get done.
Yeah, so I'll talk. The funny thing about Galindo, and you'll probably have the same experience. Talking to him on the phone, like, "Oh yeah, what's up? Okay, yeah, y'all ready to cut? You know how he talk." So I'm getting there, and I'm thinking I'm about to see a black man. So I go,
You're white.
I'm like, what's up? I'm like, I'm Coach Galindo, and then it connects. So that was funny, man. I love Coach Galindo, and so my experience. So Gustavus is kind of the reason I end up there was one because of Coach Cosgrove. I say because how he basically just laid out, hey, look, man, we want you here, letting me know and just being straight up about it. And we think you're a great running back, and we're not the best. And like that's where I kind of say like, hey, they weren't like the top of the league, but it's like, hey, that's what they were trying to work to. They were in a rebuilding phase. So that really stood out to me, along with the recruiting process of like going to school. My guy Andre Creighton taking me on a visit, man. Woo!
Shout out to Drake.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, man, I remember that's what solidified it. Actually, that'd be the nail in the coffin was that. But yeah, otherwise the coaches talking, and then like they had the Minnesota All-Star game. And it was at Gustavus is where we did our practices and things like that. And this before I was already committed to, but Galindo, and I don't know if Coach Haugen was the coach there, but Galindo for sure was the coach on the All-Star team, or at least he was around, because I remember I was mad because I wasn't like, I thought I was going to All-Star game to be a running back, right? And when I got there, they're like, oh no, you're a cornerback. I'm like, why would I be a cornerback? Like, no, we have you at cornerback. And that's understandable. They had like John Crockett, they had Jesse Newell. They had some dogs there, but I still want to play. I don't care, because my whole thing was like I felt like when you play for we were in 3A.
Yeah.
And when you play with 3A, there's always this like idea like welfare. It's not like 5A, and I'm like I'm gonna play against these guys. I could compete with them too. That's like how I saw it in my mind. We're at practice, and I'm like, man, there ain't nothing that differentiates me outside of size and stuff, but that I could do with that. So I really thought it was gonna be a proving ground game. So I was really mad that I wasn't there, and then Coach Galindo really helped me out and calmed me down. Like, look, man, we know who you are. You're gonna be playing running back. Don't go over there. And that allowed me to actually again be ready for opportunity, because had I harped on that, the cornerback had got injured that was the first, and I ended up starting as the cornerback out there. And making a couple plays that were nice. Anywho, fast forward back to, so I solidified my decision with Gustavus from the coaches. I really like what they were doing down there, and they made it easy because my sisters was in there as a legacy. There's a lot of things that just like, and I was in this program called Federate, basically Big Brothers Big Sisters, where there's like a full ride. So that was one of the schools that were in the program. So it was like, okay, everything was kind of
Yeah,
laid out,
yeah.
and they made it nice.
A lot of people don't. I'm glad you said that, bro. A lot of people don't know that. Like Division threes, if they really like you, they gonna pay for everything.
Mhm.
Like that was like one of the main reasons why I went to Saint Scholastica because they were like pay for everything. You know what I'm
Oh, yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So yeah,
That makes a huge difference because you don't want to be coming out of school, coming out of college with some debt on you too much at least, and you're gonna come out with a
right.
little bit. But yeah, so say they did that, and I want to highlight the solidifying factor was Andre Creighton. We went there, and I remember I was telling Coach, we were just talking like, man, what things you like to do outside of football? I was like, I like to dance. I'm like, okay. Right, so they set me up with Andre. We ended up going there, and when he was telling me about okay how it be, we went to the dive, and at this time, we end up getting the dive, removed somehow. I don't even know why, but anyway, it got removed. But the dive was basically like a college in campus club, and we went there. And after we went there, bro, I was like, yeah, I'm coming here, man. Like, and that's where we would take all our recruits. If they came to the dive, bro, we knew we had them. So I mean, that was the one of the things that I went to the dive. After there, outside of the football, I was like, man, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, trust me, I'll be back.
Okay, so you get up there your freshman year. Do you start right away?
Not right away, but with Andre Creighton, you can ask Dre about this. I come there and I told him like, bro, I'm gonna come here, I'll be starting, and Andre laughed at me, and I'm like, bro, all right, we'll see, and I'm like, okay, and you know how they pair you up with a running back? They happened to pair me up with like a senior running back. It was Greg. And I was like, I told him like we was in the dorm. I was like, hey man, I don't mean no disrespect, but I'm gonna take your spot. Like I'm taking your spot. And he laughed at me, whatever. And I was like at the bottom of the little thing when you come in the roster or whatever.
The depth
The
chart.
depth chart. There it is. I was at the bottom and I was like, dang, work it through. But sure enough, we had a few injuries, and by the third game, I got in and they had a hard time like running against them. And I'm like, man, they just need to like basically St. Croix run, like how you get your 5, get down, like, but they was like
Mm-hmm.
hesitating at the hole. So I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do. I got in, busted a couple runs, and then from there, I was the guy. And our senior, so we was like sharing time a little bit, and then he tore his ACL, but he was still playing he was a beast. He played through his ACL. He didn't even know he tore it until he went to the doctors. So then, but once he officially was torn and couldn't play anymore, then I would start. So I started my freshman year after the third game.
Beast. So talk about this. You came in with one of my guys, Dante Green.
Man,
Talk about how much of a beast he
man,
was. Just I know this is your pod, but just talk about even though I know Andre beast, I know Phil beast, but talk about Dante. Talk about how cold he was. People don't understand how good that dude was.
oh yeah, hey bro, Dante Green, man, I was so because I knew how good he was before because he was in the All-Star game. We was actually roommates before, so we ended up being roommates in college itself, but we were roomed together for the All Star as well. So it was cool to kind of meet him. And he was he was giving people work, like so he basically, if I can explain him and how athletic he is, it's probably like a basket. He's like he has the mindset of like a point guard basketball player in shoot, man, and like a D line body, right? So he's moving like that, like his footwork is crazy, and you see sometimes the moves he do is so crazy because he'll do a spin move and throw guys. I think off the field, Dante was literally like the enforcer. Like I remember there was like a little brawl at a place, and Dante literally came in and put a guy up against the ball with one hand, lift him up. And he's done that. I've seen him do that same move on the football field. Yeah, Dante was somebody, and he played with so much heart too. And I think that's why we kind of got along a lot early on. We did. So I ended up breaking my leg my freshman year, and me and him bumped heads a little bit that first year. And it was interesting because it was like, I'm like, dang, I know what he can do, so I'm scared of him. Like I ain't trying to get in no confrontation with him, but I got to steal my ground with him. And I think from after that, we kind of, got on the same page, and from that we kind of moved forward. And it just, I mean, we became, so that was our freshman year, and we ended up being roommates again our sophomore year and junior year. So we definitely got through that. And I think that made us come together closer. And so like the way the passion we had for wanting to win and what we had to do to win, like we literally like dude stay up all night just talking about, man, we should, like just brainstorming, like we need to do this, we need to, like think about all like the different scenarios and just talking through stuff. And like if we ever lost a game, and our first couple years we lost more to shoot, like coming from Gustavus St. Croix having a winning, and same with him coming from North, they were winning when he left there. Coming from there and then going into an environment where you're losing, you're not used to that. So you're like you're like 3-8. It don't get no worse than this, right? So or 3-7. I'm sorry. Like we're not like what the heck is going on? And then to go the next year 2-8, right? You're like, dang, you thinking something wrong with yourself, right? So we were kind of in that shaping of, okay, we got to change the culture here, and we didn't do that just alone, but I think he was one of the players of defensively that brought a mentality to the defense of like, come on, grit, like that rubbed off on other players. If there was ever somebody making a play, there's always that one player you like watching because he's about to do something. That was Dante for me. Like if I'm on the sideline, I'm looking at the team, but I'm looking at Dante because I know he's about to put work in. But yeah, yeah.
Shout out to Dante, man. He gonna be on here one day.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So you playing in the MIAC? That's arguably probably top 2, top 3 best conferences, Division 3. So you got highly ranked teams: St. John's, Bethel, St. Thomas, just crazy teams, right? What was your first taste of like? Obviously, it's D3 football. So, what was your first taste of like? Oh, this is serious. Like these ain't no slouches.
Mm-hmm.
What was that team? Like, what was the first team that somebody hit you in the mouth?
Mm-hmm.
Cause I got a story when we played against a team in the mic and I got hit in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your story.
Yeah. So it was crazy. One of the things I talked about the culture, but I think some of the guys we had around us, like I think some of my I have in my mind like my guy Marsuk, my guy Andre, some Kendrick, when we're Hall, Kendrick Hall.
Yeah,
Some of them guys like they did a good enough job of making some teams so big in my mind that I was just like I kind of had to get mentally prepared for them. So I feel like I was kind of like I never really got caught slipping. And okay, I say that. Look, now I gotta bite my words. The biggest hit that I remember outside of that Brooklyn Centre, the next game that had the biggest hit was like I ran up the middle. It's a wide open gap, like the Red Sea split. It was against St. Thomas, and I'm running up the middle, and next thing you know, this guy fly across, boom, hit me so hard he didn't even knock me down. I like spun around, but when I spun around, like my whole body was numb, so I just kept going, just to like I just kept going on muscle memory, and I remember that hit. I was like, dang, that's a he delivered that blow. So I would say yeah, that was at St. Thomas. He came down number 7. He hit the boomstick, but he ended up getting ejected because he also like what's that, helmet to helmet somebody. So that
yeah.
so but no, that was a big hit. My freshman year, like I said, like even when I got injured, it wasn't really a big hit. It was just like like a play where I got wrapped up and my foot was stuck in the ground, twisted around, and that's how I ended up breaking my leg. And it was like the last game of the season. So that was kind of when I start getting injured, I think, which is another thing that really starts to help me, and I think with mental toughness, I think, not saying I knew what it was at the time, but I think it started to help me, one, to start getting the rehab, because a lot of guys don't go into they think it's like, oh man, that's for wussies, or so to speak. But when I started realizing the importance of the rehab, icing, stretching, all that type of stuff.
Treatment, you need it.
Yeah, like that was crazy, but it only happened because I got injured. And from that, it really, set me on a better path of getting better. And I would go on to get injured a couple more times. I think the only injury I had in college there was two. One was my leg. Then my junior year. Junior year, I had a hand injury. Or it might have been sophomore, junior year. I'm sorry. And then junior year, I think I got hit by St. Thomas guy, dove at my knee, and then my MCL came unattached, and then it reattached. So I didn't have to have surgery for that, but it did come unattached and reattached itself, luckily. But yeah, those are kind of my injuries, and that's where I start to realize, okay, the size of the game, like coming from there, like you're working with bigger guys, so those injuries go up just because of that. Even in practice camp, a lot of torn ACLs in camp, so it's like little
Yeah, for sure.
yeah to make
That's because it was to even talk about that. We had 3-a-days, man. Like that was crazy. They don't even do that no more.
yeah 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 that
Wake up at 6 o'clock. You got to go eat breakfast. You got to walk
mhm,
through practice, film, practice. That was crazy, man.
yeah
Like, so you're. Let me just rewind it. Talk about your first camp, because obviously high school you got 2-a-days, but it ain't like
yeah
intensive and stuff like that. When you got to college and they gave you that playbook and they gave you that schedule, how did that feel?
Yeah, so I would say I don't remember the playbook because I didn't too much pay attention to the playbook. I guess outside of until I needed to. So I'll explain what I mean by that. But my first, kind of going into it, it was kind of like I kind of just was kind of finding like those lines. Finding I want to kind of match myself up with the best, and make the best of my reps. So in those times, I actually enjoyed the practices because it was just a time of competing and it just was like you have a lot of energy, you're running around. But then when it came to that, the running and stuff, that's where I kind of, I didn't like it. But I always had a lot of stamina. So I was the guy that could like keep going consistently, like the energy level, I could keep it steady. So I wasn't going to be like the first one, but I could be like in the top of the pack, consistently. So I would do those things to like try to help myself to like stand out in that way. But one of the things, it was like the heat. And I think one thing that saved us in some ways, like our freshman year, we had bag pushes, like, like the agile, we had to go down and back, like pushing like a bear crawl. That was the worst. And then on top of that, I used to be late, believe it or not. But I used to struggle with my time management. And so with me struggling with my time management, I'll have a lot of extra conditioning with that. I would do the condition, all right, and then I got to stay and then do the extra conditioning after that. I don't want to say that was a good thing, but it helped me figure out some time things in some ways. But yeah, what I meant by earlier when I was saying about the playbook, um, honestly, until I got overseas and we'll talk about that, wasn't really like a great reader of defense and all those things. Like I could watch film and kind of see what guys do, and then have like I get like a vision of, oh, I've seen that before, so it was familiar to me, and I kind of felt can feel that play out where I need to go and be. And then I was lucky, so we didn't have a running backs coach at Gustavus. We just kind of had like our head coach would be the running backs coach. We had different guys kind of trying to fill that role, but we never really had like a ongoing running back. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't have people coaching up the running backs.
Mm.
We had that. So it was kind of like a process of well, one, we were doing film with the linemen, so we would kind of only see the first 3 steps of every play. So it's like hearing that, and I'm falling asleep, and I'm like, man. So it was,
Oh, you trigger.
man, it's like hard to stay awake, until we actually broke off and go into our own room, and now we can actually see the full play. But it's crazy because me watching all the lineman stuff, I actually learned how to block better. So I became a pretty good blocker, just because I always seen all of them shuffle pop. You want to reach them, do all the stuff that they were showing, and then I just, when I got overseas, I remember that stuff, so I just kind of started teaching them what I took away from there, and it worked out to reinforce it more. So yeah, so that was kind of the freshman year. It was a lot hard, and then after that year, we had a lot of heat. That's kind of when they had the heat, high heat index or whatever.
Advisory stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they started changing that. But one thing that stood out was we had this test called the 300, and you had to run 2 300s back to back, 50 and back, I think 6 times, in under a minute or as fast as you can. And you had to do 2 of them back to back, and that was like the pinnacle Like everybody talking about those 300s and shoot
No,
that was a hard.
we had 1600s we had to do. So like the skill players would do 1600s. And I think you got, I don't know how much time we got, maybe 16 seconds. I don't know. 100 yards though.
Heck no. Yeah, yeah, you gotta.
Then the second tier, like the linebackers, running backs, they only had to do like 14. And then like the linemen, I think had to do like 10. And it was crazy. Like every year, like some of our top players would be like, they wouldn't make it. And our coaches would be looking at them like, what have you been doing all summer? So that's crazy that you said that. But everybody got different conditioning tests, so that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So you get to your senior year, man, you already stamped in Gustavus. Y'all, I'm sure you guys are on the up and up. You have the most career yards for the single season in Gustavus Adolphus, like for the entirety of the program. So I checked and it said you had 119 career rushing yards, which is all time. And then you had the most all time in the season, 1,459. And then the most yards in the game, 164 yards against Carlton. What year was that?
That
Was that senior year?
that was my senior year.
Talk about that. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, going into that, I think one of the biggest factors that helped with that was just kind of I stayed on campus that year over the summer, and I had a moving job with Mayflower, and so we would just me and my buddy Naga, best friend was best man in my wedding. Me and him, we did track together, but we would just work out, and so there wasn't really nothing to do down at St. Peter, so we go work the job to make some money, and then we come back and we literally would go to the gym and do a workout after a workout. So we had basically doing double days of workouts.
Know what it is.
Then come back, eat a pizza, and go to sleep and repeat. And that was kind of like the focus, and I think that was kind of one of the major factors. But then on top of that, and this little college love and everything at the time, I had a girlfriend and she had dumped me, so I was like,
Mm.
I was kind of on like, man, like I was kind of emotionally like, man, I'm kind of like a little edge on me from that. Like, so I'm like, I mean, I'm gonna I want to be at my greatest, and so I really put like a lot of focus onto football, and it kind of was a way to get my mind off of what was going on in that situation. So yeah, so I think with those two kind of factors going in, it was never really like on my radar. Like as these things start happening, like it just felt like it was like, oh yeah, and this is coming up. So I was like never really tuned into what the records or nothing were, or that I even have a chance until they start talking about them, and they're like, oh yeah, you just need this. And I think it was more so from hearing the announcer say things, right? So I think it was crazy because to like the whole situation. I just look at the whole journey, the injuries and everything, and the persistence. I think it was really just God a blessing thing because my senior year I was able from that working out and that conditioning to not experience or go through any injuries was really helped me to stay healthy that whole season and perform as I did, and have a great season. And then, 2 games, that's one game, the 264 yards just stood out on Carlton. I mean, that was a big game, but I think like my favorite game, even though we lost it that year, was probably against Augsburg. We played them, and
Mhm.
even I fumbled the ball. That was my only fumble that whole season. But it was really just the grit, man. We was running, and darn it, if I don't fumble that ball, I felt like we were driving down to go kick the game winning field goal. But it happened. But that was when like it was probably like the third game, and we're running, and we're doing whatever we want on them, and that's when I really realized like, hey, yeah, this our running game is great. Our quarterback is strong. At that time, our quarterback was up and coming. And some of the things that I learned, like I was talking about, we're trying to build a culture. And that was really what we wanted to instill. Obviously, we're trying to go for this MIAC championship. We wanted to take down St. Thomas, as much as everybody else did. But wanting to instill this. And I think that season was kind of like, I remember telling my quarterback was like, look, I trust you, man. You my quarterback, right? So it wasn't about me being the star player or nothing like that because honestly, we had Boyce, we had Gabe, we had the linebacker Boyce, we had who else we had? We had Dante. We had a lot of pieces. We had my whole line, honestly,
Mhm.
was a beast. And I think because of the work that we put in, I think we instilled like a culture. And then from that, what really felt good was that like the winning seasons that continue from that. And that's, looking back, kind of starting that foundational pieces, sometimes you got to be a stepping stone. And in the process,
For sure.
it was, you know, my line had a runner behind them that was able to, get those rushing yards and those records, but not just on my own. Is because the work that my line did. I remember sometimes I would run through a hole and nobody touched me. That definitely wasn't. It didn't take too much skill to do that. But at the same
Right.
time, there were sometimes I would break them. And I think the more one fun thing was like the more you start to do things, you see yourself doing things, like you start to instill belief in the players around you that you're gonna do great things, right?
Absolutely.
And vice versa. Like if I believe they're gonna block, it's like you guys play different because it's like you're playing with a trust. It's like I don't stop before the whistle because he might break a tackle and still be running. And it's like those type of things. And when you have that type of chemistry, it's just so fun. And to see how far you can go with that. So yeah, that was kind of the funnest part. I would just say like the memories we had built. It's sweat, blood, and tears. But
Right.
yeah, that's what I would say from that. Yeah.
So, so at the end of your senior year, D3 All-American, honorable mention. That's huge, man. It's a gang. It's probably more Division 3 schools than any other division to be recognized like that. Like, how was that, man? Like that's something you don't really think about. Like you said, I'm just balling, but just to be recognized amongst your peers, being one of the best in the country at your position. How did that feel, bro?
Yeah, man, I think as at that time it's just at a place where it's like, man, at this point I feel like I do feel deserving of it. I just feel like grateful for it. Like
Yeah.
it's not I don't think it may be better than other players or worse than anybody on that depth chart. I just think it's like taking just taking advantage of an opportunity, and I just felt really blessed, that, to get there. And I think, really, throughout I think college was a time in my life, because spirituality, faith for me, and I'd say, my faith in Jesus Christ is a huge thing for me. So I think at that time it was really, I was if there was a dark age in my faith, it's probably through college and a time where it's like, I wasn't really very having a lot of conviction about my faith. But I think it's just looking back, just how God brought me through everything, and He still was with me, allowing me to use my gifts, and protecting me and allowing me to heal up and things like that throughout it all. So I think I just look back and I think it's just a blessing of what God has done, and with me at a place where I was. And I look back as like what I'm doing today, looking back at the lessons that I can pull from football, what I learned from there, what I can share with others. And I think like that mindset of uh, uh the mindset of, that winning mentality, though the results didn't show that I was a champion or D3, whatever. And yeah, I got the All American, but even without the All American, and I feel like there's a lot of All Americans out there, right? But they might have not had the result. Looking back on it, I could say like the mindset was more important. So I feel like
That's
I
right.
definitely had that mindset. Yeah, and
That's
I
right.
still
That's right.
have that mindset too.
No, fact. So after that, did you enter the NFL draft?
Man, look. So with that mindset, I'll tell you a funny one. This is kind of what I realized looking back. I had a real fear of failure, and what I mean by that, a fear of doing something and realizing that you are not good enough to what you thought you were, which is the only place you can be at to realize what you need to do to get to where you need to go. But I had a fear of that, and it didn't really show up like in a. It wasn't clear to me at the time, but how it showed up was more like I'm gonna do it when I'm, at this position when I'm ready or when I'm fast enough. First like give me a year, I need to get faster, or things like that. So I was never really like a big on, like my 40s or timing and drills and things like that. So when my coach said, "Hey, I can," there's you can go into the draft. Everybody basically gets a chance to go into this draft and run a 40 and so forth. I'm at the point where I'm like, I was doing track during that time. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to do it. And he was like, so I didn't take the chance, the opportunity, which is crazy to think. I didn't take advantage of it. And fast forward, like I end up, going overseas and then coming back, and then later start training to go to the NFL Pro Day at the U of M, right? So I was gonna have another opportunity at the U of M, and when that came up, same thing was kind of going on. So it's funny how like if you're mentally not think how things can happen just because your mindset sometimes leads you into. So I end up tearing my ACL, which was a blessing in disguise, but I tore it, so I didn't have that opportunity. But honestly, in my mind, I was going to be going back to Germany to play overseas again, right? Because I didn't believe I was good enough. But playing overseas in Germany gave me the time to get better, right? So yeah, so I that's one of the things. Not that I don't have a regret about it, but like I think it would have been cool to see me just go for it and fail, right?
Right.
I wouldn't have probably ran a 4 or 5 or nothing like it, but I would have been in a spot where okay, this is where I'm at. I think it's good to just know where you're at because like I was talking about opportunity. Sometimes opportunity, that's how you don't know how to
How you get the opportunity?
come up.
Right.
Yeah,
So how was overseas? How was that like? And you said you was in Germany.
yeah,
Like, what was your team called? And I know you was a man over there.
yeah, man, that was fun. Overseas was man amazing experience. I went to Germany. When I got to Germany, and I've been to, and when I reflect back, I went to Mexico, played in for a spring ball game with Gustavus. So I started looking back. It's like, you know, when I thought traveling, when I was younger, was just like if I go to a few states, I'm well traveled. So that was my mindset. So going out of the country to me was just like taboo, and I had no wants or desire to do it. But when I went there, I had the opportunity because I was coaching with the coach's brother, and he was going overseas. He was like, "Hey man, would you be interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, yeah, I'd be interested." Not really thinking like when you say these things, you don't really think they're holding any weight. So it's like, "Yeah, sure." I will send them your film, and sure enough, I send them the film. And he's like, "Well, coach wants you. He wants you to come over. You got a passport." I had it at the time. Like, yeah, okay, great, man. And sure enough, they send me over a contract, and I'm signing it, and everything is like, I don't believe this is happening. And I still remember going there the first few days we're there, but the first day we're starting to drive on our own. It's me and my guy Eli Shoemaker. Shout out Eli in the St. Cloud. No longer around, but for a football program. Eli, we're over there driving in the thing, and it's like, can you believe this, man? We're in Germany right now. We're driving on an autobahn, like where the
Crazy.
speed limit on the edge. So it was just like surreal to think. But going there, I wasn't there just for a couple months. It was like extended time our first time because they really wanted us to get acclimated, and we weren't just going as players. We were player coaches, so we coached not only the team that we played with, we coached the younger people and we kind of ran practices and drills. So we had a lot of rookies coming in that year. So going over there and getting that opportunity, open up our minds. But like really what's cool was like, a lot of times I had all these different ideas about Germany. And when I went over there, you realize they're just people like us. They do some things that don't make sense because as American, I don't think that makes sense to do,
Right.
but they grew up, so it makes sense for them to do it that way. But just the love that was shown as a team, it's just like now I have a whole German family in Germany. So I just love that experience and how they took me in. Man, the first year I had to drop that. I don't know if you ever seen my highlight over there. I have to drop that for you or something, or for you to get.
Yeah.
But
Send me that so I can clip that up.
yep, I'll send that over. And I had a really good year my freshman year. I think that was probably in the top shape I had, feeling condition wise. And then the cool thing was we play in the summer. So our football here is in the fall. So everything is
Right.
it got over there. Now you're dealing with a different, cramps and everything, but boy, running in that heat, you be moving. It's like, track.
It's feeling fast from what.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling fast, and that was a great experience, man. Coming off of there, had the whole, my locks and everything. Remember those lock days, and
I definitely do.
yeah. So yeah, that was a great time there, man. I was there for I went on and off. So like I said, I came back. I tore my ACL. I couldn't go back that following season. But the connection I had that first season and just like the trust I built up in the organization, bro. They were like, whenever you're ready, when you get back, we will have you. So I lived.
Was your team good?
our team was like a Division 3. We weren't good. My freshman, not freshman, the first year I was
Rookie.
there, we literally lost every game except one, and we tied that one. So we it's horrible. We had a lot of growth, areas of growth, should I say, or areas that we could improve. But but boy, we battled. I tell you that, man. It's like we battled teams. The team we tied was a team that came down from the league above us. So there's like three Premier Leagues: the GFL 1, GFL 2, and GFL 3. We're in three, and the team from GFL 2 came down and played. But I would play, and then you intermingle with all the guys and things. So I would play, like, talk to the GFL 1 guys, and they're like, "Man, why don't you play for GFL 1?" But like for me, it was like, man, this felt like home for me. Like I'm playing with them because they show love, and obviously you want to bring their team up, but there's other opportunities to play at GFL 1s, but I would never want to play anywhere else except there. And for the time that I'm glad I was there. I was where I needed to be. So that's what I'd say for that. So,
All right, so you finish up your career. It's time to start working. Well, you're a married man, so let's just jump into that.
yeah,
I know you have a kid, so let's talk about father. Let's talk about marriage. First, let's talk about fatherhood. Like, how is that going for you? I
man.
know it's like a slippery slope because when you be so excited, and then as soon as that baby drop me, boy, you ain't slept since.
And yeah, that is, man. I remember, before baby boy came, CJ, my little baby boy's going to be 6 months on the 17th. I remember before he came out, I was like, you get these different spurts of energy. I don't know if you're like, and I remember I was like, because I heard, baby waking up all the time, so I start waking up like 3 in the morning, like, yeah, I'm getting ready for, when he come. So I'll wake up at 3 in the morning for I did that for like a month or so, just like high energy, like, yeah, I'm being able. I would just like envisioning myself being up with him. And then when it came, time and everything happened, it's just surreal. I had that energy for a little bit, but then after a little bit, the baby, he's up at nighttime. You're like, come on, you need to go sleep. Come on, go sleep now. Yeah. Like that get a little too tight, but
And my kids still stay up all night. They get up in the middle of the night. I be looking like, what is going on?
yeah. So yeah, once that sleep deprivity is a thing, so yeah, so but no, I love being a dad. One of the things growing up, not having my father in my house, I had father figures, but one things, I didn't have a father figure to kind of understand, what is that like having a man in the house. So I'm kind of building my own picture, and one of the things that I heavily rely on is my heavenly father. So I always had a heavenly father in my home, and that's what was instilled by my mom, that that was the case. Really, giving myself like the space to, okay, some things I don't really, or is uncomfortable. I don't know what to do in the situation, but I do the best what I can, and God fills in the rest. That's what I'm a believer in. So yeah, so it's interesting in that way, being a fatherhood, and same also with being a husband, right? Sometimes conflict, resolution, different things like that. How I handle those things, and kind of understanding how she handles them on the other side too. So I think of a lot of skills from football, communication, this stuff get applied into.
It's like, bro, it's crazy. It's like trial and error. Like, obviously we come from a sport background. So like you thinking like, okay, it's a team thing. All right, we gotta be on one accord. Like, but it don't work like that all the time.
Yeah,
Everybody got different needs. One people were raised different.
yeah,
So like, yeah. So that whole dynamic is crazy, especially when it comes to like you said, being a husband, then being a father. So like you said, you didn't have a father figure in your house. Maybe your wife did. You know what I'm saying? So like that's another dynamic. Then the way you think, and then the way she thinks, like it's
yeah.
crazy. But you gotta come together on one accord. You know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna work.
Hey, and sometimes you just gotta know not to talk back to the coach.
Yeah, which is the wife.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You got what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a balance of that, and it's I think it's as the head of the household, and being the man, thinking is that not from that set. I think there's a respect level that we have mutually for each other, but it's also a high respect that I have for what she does, and there's things where I'm not as strong at that she picks me up, and vice versa. And I think sometimes the bumping of heads, because in our marriage we're both very strong-willed people and stubborn in some ways. At times we bump heads like that, and like what I find is like, humility is one of the things that, applying that, and just like Not saying that I'm right or wrong or whether that matters or not, but lowering my, pride and bringing, like, putting ego aside and just, apologizing in situations. That's like, like for me, and kind of, I know we talked a little about mental things, but there's some mental things that, no, just are there at times, whether it be, feeling that depression or different things that are ongoing. And sometimes, like, my, like, coping mechanism is kind of putting it off and not feeling that. Even with my injuries, like, I have a high pain tolerance because if I don't feel it, it's not happening.
You think about it, right?
Yeah, so you're not thinking about it. So I think, kind of relating that from an emotional standpoint, I can see myself being numb to situations when a lot of times my pride comes up as a numbing factor because, like, and it comes off as not very compassionate or empathizing for another person, and I realizing that. So a lot of it, my humility is coming into, letting my pride go aside, and then it feels uncomfortable because then I have to start feeling these feelings and then feeling what they might be feeling as well.
And then you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand where you come from, brother. I understand.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like, and men, like, men are very prideful. Like,
mhm.
that's just what we are. Like, I'm a man. This how I feel, or it don't bother me when it does. In actuality, it bothers you, but you don't want to think about it. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely feel where you're coming from on that one.
Yeah, but I'm grateful enough. One thing I love about it too, it's like the crazy thing is, like, the worst thing we have in our mind when we become humble, we become very vulnerable, and, like, we're gonna be, attacked. But the crazy thing happens is that my wife actually then, you know comes to, she don't attack me, when you're down there. I think most of our loved ones are not going to attack us. I mean, they might in the moment when they're emotionally, high or whatever, say something, but most time it kind of, like, mediates the situation to, like, I let myself, I let that guard down for you, and then it allows that person to let their guard down. So it's crazy, like, how you can become closer connected with somebody, even, past what getting to know a relationship. It's like that's how that marriage just continued. Like, what in my 1 year, 1 year in, so not very deep at all, but in my time being, I was seeing, like, like, it's gonna be, we're changing as people and growing in different ways, and it allows us that space to do that together. You know.
Yeah, they say like the first 5 years is the hardest. So I mean, I get it. Like, it's funny because, like, we was married for a year and we had our daughter. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we on year 6 now of marriage, year 14 of being together. It'll be 15 this upcoming year.
Congratulations.
Oh yeah, yeah, appreciate it, bro. Yeah, but bro, I'm telling you, like, it's gonna be a lot of trial and errors, bumps and roads. But at the end of the day, like you said, if you got your relationship with God and you got God in your relationship, everything's gonna work out. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's cool, man. So now, what you up to now? Tell the people what you doing.
Absolutely. So now, some of the things, like I was mentioned earlier in my story, and part of my story is, wanting, coming from a place where didn't grow up with, financially, being able to provide as a, family for ourselves. So that was kind of a big driving factor for my football and wanting to get to the NFL. But now it's kind of changed into a passion of financial coaching. So understanding how money works and wanting to share that with other people. I found, a company that I'm with, and it's actually my own business that I do, where, it had a football coach and the foundational, factors of that environment of team, growing environment, but really ultimately helping people understand how money works so that they can have freedom for their families, right? And really feeling like, that's not just a great idea or, something that doesn't really happen, but actually a path towards doing those things. And, I have a big passion for helping families, whether that's, somebody outside of sports, just day to day, and, they have their jobs and things, to, professional athletes who are kind of getting into those fields where, they can, how do I manage the funds, whether I'm going to start getting a lot of funds, or even a place where it's like, hey, how do I have a plan A and plan B where I pursue this thing that I really want to do, right? But then on the other side, the financial goals that I want to attain with them. So all my experiences kind of shape, like, what your passion is, whether that be football, whether it be, painting, whether it be singing, whether it be working with your hands, whatever it is, a trade, whatever your passion is, let that open up your opportunities right, and playing around it like that. So that's my passion right now is lined up with financial coaching, but having a lot to do with being passionate and pursuing your goals and your dreams for your family.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, I'm gonna give you your flowers. Like I said, I always tell people like you one of the best players I ever played against. We had some crazy battles in high school, and it's crazy now. Well, we graduated in 2010, 15 years later. We still in communication. We always been cool. Always had the mutual respect and love for one another. And I appreciate you for being on the pod, man. This was a good one, man. This probably my longest one.
Man,
So this is pretty good,
man.
man. You long winded, boy, but it's all good.
All right, man.
It's all good.
And I
I
want
appreciate it.
to and doubly give you back, mutual respect and so happy because always, seeing you and whether it's through Facebook or talking over the phone or reconnecting in different ways. And I always see myself in you, and now I love to hear more about your story, your path, man. You gotta be interested. So when I get my podcast together, I'm gonna have you come on, and I want to hear what kind of what your process was. But really, I want to say like the similarities, man, even from the hairstyles and barbers,
All right.
everything. We had dreads. I feel like we cut them at the same time, but we never
Same
talked
time.
about that. And that was a big moment for me of change. But all that to say, man, I think you're I could tell godly man and on the right path and a fatherly figure to be looked up to with what you're doing in the schools. You'll be a principal at a school and running that place with a great environment. And just happy, to be on the show with you. Thanks for giving me this platform. And yeah, God's blessing right back to you.
For sure. And like I said, the point of the podcast, I want to get real athletes, real people, because nobody would never hear the Jeffrey Dubose story unless you tell them. So, like, I'm very happy to have you on here, bro. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I feel blessed. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you.
Man, yeah, that is my bad. I didn't mean to be so long. I could have been